Hi, my name is Karen Sorensen. I work in distance learning as an advocate for online course accessibility. I'm going to show you how to make a Word document accessible. All of this information can also be found on our website at pcc.edu/access. While this recording shows Microsoft Word 2010 for Windows, if Mac users choose Ribbon from the View menu in their Microsoft Word for Macs, this will make the interface similar to the Windows version of Word, so you can follow the instructions in this recording. The first thing to do if you're using Microsoft Word for Windows is to turn on the accessibility checker. Unfortunately, this tool or feature is not available for Microsoft Word for Macs. To turn on the accessibility checker, go to the File tab, select Info, then click Check for Issues button and select Check Accessibility. The accessibility only checks .docx files, so if you have a file type of .doc, you will need to save your document as a .docx file. The Accessibility Checker panel will open to the right of the document. The Accessibility Checker provides you with a list of errors, warnings, and tips. When you click on an error or warning, instructions on how to fix the accessibility concern or problem appear below under the heading Additional Information. The Accessibility Checker can be a big help, but you have to remember that it's an automated tool. It doesn't think, so it can't ascertain whether something should be a heading or a list. You still need to manually review the document. If you use a Mac and don't have access to this tool, I would recommend you check your document by using the checklist we provide on the Accessibility website, or open your Word document on a Windows machine and check it with Microsoft Word for Windows Accessibility Checker as we are doing now. Notice that the Accessibility Checker is warning us that our image needs alt text. Now, again, it can't determine whether you have adequately described the image and surrounding content, so you can ignore this warning if you have. But see how if I select that warning, information on how to add alt text to an image and why it's important to do so appears below under the Additional Information heading. Images are a great way to liven up a document. When you insert one, think about whether it is just a decorative image or whether information important to the student is being conveyed in the image. If important information is being conveyed in the image, you want to make sure to convey that same information in alternate text format, so a blind student will also be able to obtain that same information. There are a few ways to provide that alternate text. You can describe it in the textual content in your document so the image is only supplemental, or you can add a caption beneath the image, or you can add an alt text description. If the image is just decorative, you don't need to worry about providing an alternate text description. To add a caption or alt text, just right-click on the image. To add a caption, you just choose Insert Caption and follow the instructions. To add alt text, you choose Format Picture, then choose Alt Text from the menu, and add a description of the image that includes what is important about the image. Use the description field, not the title field. It is the description field that is read by screen readers. Blind students and students with learning disabilities that use screen reading software will now be able to gain the important information conveyed in the image. And you'll notice that our warning to provide alt text has now disappeared from the accessibility checker. Next, we're going to talk about headings. It isn't enough to make text big and bold so it looks like a heading. Headings need to be formatted as headings so other technologies get the metadata information that something is a heading, that this is a heading. If you don't format headings as headings, cell phones, tablets, and assistive technologies like screen reading software will present that information as ordinary paragraph text, running it together with the paragraph above and below it. To make something a heading, select the text that you want to make into a heading, go to the Home tab, and in the Styles group, choose the appropriate heading level. In this case, I would choose heading 1. In addition to formatting headings as headings, the headings need to be used in the correct order. Headings chunk out your content, making it easier for everyone to read the document. Headings are also a major way of navigating with a screen reader. Heading 1 is like the title of a book, and there is just one heading 1 per document. Heading 2s are like chapter titles. Heading 3s are subsections of those chapters, and so on. Heading order is also similar to an outline. It can be helpful to view the navigation pane while applying structure to a Word document, so you can see the headings in an outline style format to make sure you haven't skipped a heading level. So we would want to we're going to notice the accessibility checker does not say anything about our headings not being marked up as headings. Because it doesn't know that these should be headings. It cannot ascertain that from this document. I'm going to close the accessibility checker for right now. So this is our heading 1. Then the next heading is always going to be a heading 2. And I can open up this Styles menu with this expandable arrow here. And I can see all of my headings. Right now I'll choose this heading 2. And the next heading underneath is making your Word documents accessible is accessibility checkers. And since this is a subheading of making your Word documents accessible, it would be a heading 3. So right now I have a heading 1, a heading 2, and a heading 3. Now you might think that this next heading would be a heading 4, but it's not, because if you look at the heading above it, accessibility checkers, images is not a subsection of accessibility checkers. So then you look at the next heading above that, making your Word documents accessible. It is a subsection of this heading 2, making your Word documents accessible. So images would be a heading 3 because it's a subsection under this heading 2. So similar to accessibility checkers, it's also a heading 3. And then as I scroll down and I highlight this heading, you'll notice it's just written in normal text and made into a big bold thing that looks like a heading but is not formatted as a heading. So we need to change this. So I look at the heading above this, images. No, headings is not a subsection of images. It's not a subsection of accessibility checkers, but it is, again, a subsection of this heading level 2, making your Word documents accessible. So this would also be a heading 3. Scrolling down, same thing with lists. This would also be a heading 3, because these are all things about making your Word documents accessible. These are all involved in making your Word documents accessible. But when we get to PDFs, that's not a subsection of tables and color, not a subsection of making your Word documents accessible either. but it is another type of document accessibility. So it is another chapter and should be a heading 2, similar to making your Word documents accessible. It's of the same level of importance as this heading 2, so it also would be a heading 2. Now, copy your content to a D2L web page. That's another type of document accessibility and not a subsection of PDFs. So that too is also a heading 2, as is making your PowerPoints accessible is a heading level 2. And if we look at this navigation pane, we can see it looks like an outline and it makes sense. Now, if we were to have gotten our headings out of order, say we skipped from heading 1 to a heading 3 and we made this heading 2, it was actually heading 3. Let's look at our accessibility panel, and you'll notice it does say we've skipped a heading level. So if I click on this, it will explain again why I should fix this and how to fix it. So this accessibility checker can't check everything, but it sure is helpful. I'm going to change that back to heading level 2, and you'll notice it will disappear from the menu here. So I'll just go back to heading 2, and you see now it's no longer listed in the accessibility checker. Okay, again I'm going to close the navigation pane for now. Now that our document is formatted with headings, I want to show you a couple of cool things you can do because you've formatted your document correctly. One thing is I can change, if I don't like the styles that these headings are in, I can change the styles in one fell swoop. I can also change them individually. I could change the color of this to red, for example, and it would still stay marked up as a heading 1. But if I want to change everything at once, I can use this Change Styles button, click on it, go to Style Set, so Change Styles, Style Set, and then if I roll over these styles, you see on the screen being previewed the different looks that I can apply to my document in one easy click. You can also add a table of contents. If this was a long document, I would like to have a table of contents. So I'm going to insert a page break here, put my cursor up on this page, and then I'm going to go to the References menu and choose Table of Contents, and then I can choose which type of table of contents I want. I'm going to choose this Automatic Table 1, and then it just created a table of contents based on all of my headings. So here's the heading 1. You can see it kind of looks like the navigation menu. But a cool thing about this is I can just, you know how in a Word document you have to hit Control click to make a link work? Well, you can do the same thing with this table of contents. I can just Control click and jump right to that section of the document. Again, just like any other link, I would just put my cursor on that link and I'd go push down Control and click, and it will take me to that section of the document. So those are advantages above and beyond accessibility for using headings on your document. And we're going to talk about lists. Now you can see that this list here, if I put my cursor in it, it highlights the list icon up on the home ribbon. But if I click on this list here, there is no list icon highlighted. So this is made to look like a list, but it doesn't actually read as a list. So on a cell phone, this would all run together in one paragraph. Um, and for a screen reader trying to read this without the visual information, it would read this as one paragraph run together and would read these out as dashes. So we really want to format this as a list, and then it will be displayed and read correctly. So in order to do that, so in order to make it into an actual list, I'm going to highlight the list and click on the bulleted list icon here. Now so we can see it more clearly, I'm changing these to round bullets. And now it is now a list. It's messed up some of my formatting, so I'm going to indent here with just the tab key, or I can use this key to make these sub bullets. Okay, now this is formatted correctly and will be read and represented correctly. Next we'll talk about links. Links are a major method of navigation for everyone. Links, images, and headings are all eye-catching when we scan a page. Links are also a quick way for a blind student to scan a page. Screen reading software can pull up all of the links on a page. If the links are embedded into meaningful text, they are much more helpful, as both a sighted and an unsighted person will be able to quickly determine where that link will take them. If the link is just a long URL or the meaningless words "click here," it interrupts both types of users from scanning because they can't quickly determine if that's the link they need. Here's an example. So here we have a link to a web page on making a meaningful link. Copy this URL and then select the text that describes the destination of the link. So this link would take us to how to make a meaningful link. So this is good descriptive text. Now I select the text and then I right-click and choose Hyperlink from the menu. The Insert Hyperlink menu will open. Now I want to paste that URL that I copied into the address field and then click OK to save the link. If you think students will be printing the document and you want them to have the URL, put it in parentheses after the link. But don't hyperlink it. Don't activate the hyperlink. That way, when a screen reading software pulls up all the links in a page, it will pull up how to make a meaningful link, which is descriptive, instead of this long HTTP URL. Okay, next we'll move on to tables and color. Tables, designating a column headers in a table is really essential to a screen reader user being able to understand how the information is laid out. Please note, Microsoft Word only allows the top row of a table to be designated as a header row. You cannot designate the first column as row headers. This process is different in Microsoft Word 2010 for Windows than it is on Microsoft Word 2011 for the Mac. On pcc.edu/access, our website, under Making Microsoft Word Documents Accessible, there are separate directions provided for each computer type. For this recording, though, I will show you how to designate the top row of a table as the column headers. Put your cursor in the top row of your data table. The Table Tools tab will display. click on the Design tab underneath the Table Tools tab. In the Table Style options, select the Header Row checkbox. Next, click on the Layout tab under the Table Tools and click on Repeat Header Row. I know this isn't intuitive, but it's very important to designating that top row as the table header. In addition, if you have a table that it spans more than one page, your table header row will repeat, which is very convenient for all users. Another thing to be aware of is that screen readers read tables from left to right, top to bottom, one cell at a time, and they do not repeat cells. So if cells are split or merged, the reading order can be thrown off. To test the reading order of your table in Word, place your cursor in the first cell of the table. Now press the Tab key repeatedly to navigate through the table. This will demonstrate the reading order that Assistive Technologies will use. And I want you to ask yourself if it makes sense. So as I tab through, I'll see that it will read grade first, then percentage, then A 90 to 100, B 80 to 90, C 70 to 80. So that makes sense. Now if I had merged cells or split them, I just have to make sure the reading order still makes sense. So just make sure you construct your table in a way that accommodates a good reading order. Next we'll talk about color. Make sure not to use color alone to convey information. For example, hyperlinks in this document are the color blue, but they are also underlined. So color alone is not being used to convey important information. I can tell, even if I can't determine the color, that this is a link. And because it's formatted as a hyperlink, a screen reading software will announce that it's a link. But if I'm colorblind, I will also be able, and can't see blue, I will also be able to determine that this is a link because it's underlined. It's also important to use sufficient color contrast when you do use color. You can usually spot when font color doesn't have sufficient contrast with its background color, but there's also a nifty free tool called the Color Contrast Analyzer. See the pcc.edu/access website for a link to this tool and an explanation on how to use it. If you are just eyeballing color contrast and you think it's not sufficient, change it to something like black on white that you know has sufficient contrast. So for this example, percentage is in a yellow that is very difficult to see against this white background. So I just highlight the text and I can change the color to black. And same with this grade color. I don't know if this might be sufficient color contrast, but for consistency's sake and just to make sure, I can change it to black on white, and that I know has sufficient contrast. And that's pretty much it. See pcc.edu/access for more information.